Jessyca Lewis. It's time to wine. I'm here with my wine notes, my wine spectator, and my Starbucks cup. And we are speaking in front of a live international audience right now. And I am broadcasting live from Seattle. And Andrew, tell us where you are right now, broadcasting live from.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Smith, and I'm broadcasting live from here. I'm going to get a little spin around from the San Giacomo Family Vineyards in historic Sonoma. This is our beautiful building here. We have a beautiful terrace where I do most of my tastings, and of course, 1,600 pristine acres of wine grapes. So I'm coming at you live here this beautiful morning here in wine country.
Oh, wonderful. So tell us about you're the hospitality manager, correct?
Yes, I'm the hospitality sales manager here at San Giacomo. I've been here about 2 years, fairly new hospitality program for us. The family has been farming this land, 96 years as of 2 days ago. August 30th was our 96th anniversary birthday here at the home ranch. And I've been part of this company for 2 years and have been in Sonoma about 7 as of October, have worked in wine 7.5 years. And before that, came from New York and had a lot of other adventures before I landed here.
Okay, and we'll talk about these other adventures too. I'm Jessyca Lewis. I'm a marketing and digital strategist for the brands you know and love, and I am currently doing a YouTube broadcast, a live broadcast on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We have a question, but we'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
We are broadcasting currently on many different Facebook pages. So if you're watching, you're welcome to ask any questions, and you're welcome to interact with us. And let's take a look and see who's written us a note here. It's Wayne Baxdale.
Wayne.
Hello,
hey,
Wayne.
gang.
Are you here? Send us some love. Feel free to ask any questions.
One of my favorite British sommeliers, Wayne Baxendale. Good to see you, bud.
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your work history.
Sure. I guess I'll touch first on wine. But I've been, like I said, in Sonoma a couple years, almost a decade now, which is crazy to think. But yeah, I started as a tasting room manager in Lodi for a couple months, and then got approached to come out here to Sonoma as a director of hospitality. Did that for almost 4 years, and now I've been with the San Giacomos as the hospitality sales manager, leading this hospitality program, like I said, last 2 years in a growing, beautiful company. That hospitality is fairly new, so it's been wonderful to see the blossoming and be part of it here as we grow our hospitality program, our wine club, and just our experiences that we can offer here on the home ranch. Before that, going way back when, I was a professional actor and singer for a long time. Actually, most of my life, from probably 18 to at least like 35 or so. I was performing all over New York and around the country, and in fact around the world. I used to headline cruise ships, and that's kind of how I got into wine. I was fortunate enough to travel to many dozens and dozens of countries, I think about 60 or so, and I saw what wine culture was to non-US people, and there was this beautiful familial aspect to it, bringing families together, being together during the day, drinking with meals, and just this comfort level that I thought was sorely lacking here in the States. I had not experienced much of it, had not spent much time out here in Sonoma, where it is kind of a lifestyle as well. But when I was getting out of the industry of performing, because my wife and I had our first little darling baby, and I didn't want to keep traveling, I thought, what else do I love? And it came down to what I love to do is make people smile. So if I couldn't make people smile by being on stage singing, I thought, you know what makes people smile? Some wine. And I think if you can do it well and lose the pretension and make it be super fun, that's what I thought I'd fall in love with. And lo and behold, 7 years later, it's been a fantastic tradition, change in my life, and it's been great. Lucky enough, here in Sonoma, there's also a professional theater company called Sonoma Arts Live, and I am on the board of directors here and frequently perform. My wife and I just closed Guys and Dolls last month. That was to a sold out crowd. So I get the satiation of performing daily on this beautiful terrace amongst people, and then in the evenings get to go still do some theatrical stuff, and it's just amazing.
That's wonderful. So are you doing acting and singing and dancing, and do you do all three, or what do you do exactly?
Do you need me to put it into levels of which I'm best at?
Could you show us, actually? Yes.
Oh, I'm not ready for this, but sure. Here we go. No, I'm teasing. Yes, actor, singer, and I can move.
Oh, nice.
So
I'm sure I probably could act. I haven't done it, but I dance. So I've been dancing for
Yeah.
a time. So
And
we'll yeah, go ahead.
well, you said that you've been teaching and working with students, and there's obviously a lot of acting in that as well, because you
There's a
have to.
lot of much more theatrical ability than you'd ever know, and it's live.
Absolutely. And what I love about this jaunt into hospitality is it was flawless, because I constantly have to work with people and what they're bringing to the table, just like you're working with actors on stage. And if something goes wrong, you have to adapt to that. If someone comes to the terrace here and says something that is outlandish, or if they're being not into wine, or if they're having a bad day, you have to make that change, and you're in total control of directing their day, just like we work with on stage. So it's been a perfect partnership.
Yeah, well, it's also, one of the things originally when before I got heavily into this, there was a perception of people in the wine industry that perhaps they may be snobby or et cetera, et cetera. And I have found the exact opposite. It's like they're my people. They're the most fun,
Yeah.
interesting people. Most of them are travelers. They're interesting. They've seen things, and they're just some of my favorite people in the whole world are in the
I
wine industry.
I totally agree. And I hate it when I find one of those people who still live in that pretension world. I'm like, guys, this is not what it's about. You sell a heck of a lot more wine when you make people feel comfortable around it than if you put it on a pedestal and say, one day you'll be worthy, is my opinion, at least.
I think so too. Well, I think people that are really well liked and good salespeople in general are people that know how to deal with people and are friendly and fun and enjoy people. And so I agree. Do you do
Yeah.
any performing at the winery?
You know what's so funny? It's funny you should say that. I've always wanted to. This is an outdoor space here, and it's beautiful. It'd be a little hard with the elements, but it's something that's been on my back burner for a while. In fact, I want to do something called, instead of a cabaret night, a Cabernet night, and have it be wine pairings with songs that would go in 2 acts, and the wines would get gradually bolder and stronger, and so would the performers and the songs that they're singing. It would kind of be a build to a wonderful big climax of intensity, just like we do oftentimes with our wine flights.
Oh, I think that would be wonderful. So tell us a little bit about Sonoma.
Man, I am a transplant, but gosh, do I love it here. My wife and I bought a house 2 years ago. We moved here and rented 7 years ago. And funny enough, this is kind of crazy. I moved here the weekend of the 2017 horrific Sonoma fires. I was working at a winery, and we found an apartment and hadn't moved in yet. I had a sleeping bag, and I was sleeping in this apartment, going to my job during the day, and I left Sunday morning to go pick up my family to move into Sonoma Monday, and Sunday night the fires happened. So it was crazy, but I instantly felt like, oh my gosh, my home, my home, my home. So I was driving in a couple days later with the U-Haul coming in to move, and everyone was still evacuating, saying, "Go, get out of here!" And I was like, "Hi, everyone! You're so friendly, it's so nice." But once I got into place, I was enamored, and I still am. This is a gem. If you haven't been out here, first of all, if you do, you got to let me know. I'll take care of you. But this place will change your life in a lot of ways. It's really wonderful.
How's the weather generally?
Amazing. You're looking at the coldest day we've had all summer. There's something called a diurnal shift. So we'll have a beautiful hot day. This is why the grapes love it, and particularly what's behind me, Chardonnay and Pinot. Thin-skinned grapes love that Carneros, and of course, Burgundian kind of climate. So we'll have very hot days, very hot, no humid days, around 92 to 105 in the middle of summer. So very, very hot. Doesn't feel like it from New York. 82 feels like 110 in New York, but you'll have very hot, dry, hot days. And at night, you'll shift down to about 55 degrees. So you can sleep with your windows open. Right now, I have a sweater on and pants. I haven't worn a sweater and pants in months, but I promise you, by the time we're done with this, I'm going to be doing this and starting to shed some clothing, because the day will warm up and be beautiful, and then at night get cold again. So the climate's fantastic. We do have a change in weather. The leaves do change. So that's wonderful too, but we don't get snow. We rarely get rain. We want rain. We like rain. So it's a beautiful climate. It's wonderful.
Do you want to show us? You want to walk around and show us a little bit more of the winery?
Yeah, sure. I can go for a little stroll here. We have
You can go a little
I feel a little bit
stroll.
like the little Blair Witch Project here, but that's okay.
Yeah, well,
So
it's did that win anything? I don't know.
So what's really cool about when you come here and taste, we talk to you about the history of the family and stand on this wonderful back terrace here with this gorgeous view of 110 Chardonnay acres here. And it looks like it goes on forever, and it really kind of does. One of my favorite things about this place, though, if you see here, this is one of our original vines that were planted in 1969, and we still have 5 acres left of the 162 we planted. What's amazing about old vines like this is you can count the notches on here and actually see the life of a family who's farmed this. So much like a tree in half and counting the rings and seeing the years, you can do this on vines and start seeing the history of the farming. So what's amazing is those plants of the 162 we planted way back in 1969, we still have 5 acres alive. And those 5 acres were touched by our founder born in 1896 and his youngest great grandson born in 2009. So they're holding 4 generations of a family together, that living vine right there.
What's nice about that too, I worked in Italy, and so I was working with Italian wineries, and some of those wineries have 14 generations of family. And so it's really interesting to see the family history. Perfect.
It's pretty miraculous, yeah.
It's just beautiful. So what?
Yeah, you want to see some grapes? Let me show you some grapes while we're speaking of the wines we do here.
Can you get out there? Show us some grapes.
I can. It's a short little jaunt that I'm pretty good at. I do it every single day. I can even walk backwards. Look at this. It's amazing. I got stunt double.
Okay.
So here you go.
And while you're doing that, I'll remind everybody, feel free to ask any questions. We are live. We're broadcasting on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You are welcome to ask any questions. And if you would like to know more about subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you'd like to be familiar with more interviews. Sorry.
Yes, and I pride myself. There's no bad questions. I pride myself on taking any silly question you might have and making you feel like an expert. So shout out anything you've ever wanted to know about wine or wine growing. Here is some of our clusters. So this is going to be our 2023 Chardonnay harvest. You can see how gorgeous they are. They're just going through something called veraison. Veraison is when green grapes, because all grapes start green grapes change color, either into red or blue, purple, or in this case for Chardonnay, they're going to be a beautiful greenish yellow or yellow orange as they start getting really ripe. And now is the time where we're starting to get close to harvest. We've actually started our first day of harvest a couple days ago for sparkling wines. And as we get to these have to get much more ripe for still wines. So we're probably 4 to 5 weeks out at this point from picking these grapes to make our 2023 beautiful Chardonnay. Wayne, I see. What's Andrew's favorite grape and why? Ooh, you put me on the spot. It's like choosing your favorite child. Again, it depends on the day which one is your favorite, I guess. But I'll list a couple of my favorites. Wayne knows one of them near and dear to my heart. Tiraldago or Teraldago is a beautiful northern Italian grape that is just like squid ink. I'm a big, bold wine fan. It sounds so cliche, but Cabernet Franc are some of my favorites. Typically, any Bordeaux blends, any of those grapes that make up Bordeaux are some of my absolute favorites. But one that kind of stands above the rest is Mourvedre, which I just have always had a loving relationship with. Absolutely love it.
What is Sonoma known for in terms of the wines that are available?
Yeah, so we are very much akin to Burgundy. So we are Chardonnay and Pinot heavy. This family alone, the San Giacomo's, produced 1,659 acres of Chardonnay and Pinot plants. So it's kind of with this Burgundian climate, you kind of deal the hand that's dealt to you, right? And you stick with that version. So Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, famous here. As you start going north into Sonoma, though, you get into Zin land and some fantastic Cabernets that are up on the mountains as well.
It just sounds so lovely. Okay, so why don't you talk a little bit about it, and let me know if you want to expand on this. Your cruise line theatrical productions. You want to talk a little bit about some of your experiences on the cruise lines?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't know if we have enough time for all the stuff that happens on cruise ships.
I'm sure you have a lot of interesting stories.
Yes, and there's only a couple I can say live on this streaming network. But yeah, the cruise life was wonderful. One of my favorite things, although it's one of the hard, if you ever want to go to hospitality university, get a job on a cruise ship, because you're on 6 months of the year, 24 hours a day, because essentially if a guest needs something, you're going to be their person. I was lucky enough to work on some really small high-end luxury ships on Oceania, where the ratio was 684 guests to 400 crew. So basically one-on-one. And many of the staff were international. So there's about four of us who were American. So obviously, having a lot of American cruisers, they were gravitating towards us with questions. There was a kinship in the culture. So we were very well known and therefore very involved. And productions would always help that because you'd sing anything from Phantom of the Opera to Elton John to John Denver. I mean, kind of whatever we would do would be 3 or 4 shows that you'd sing throughout the week. And then we also wrote some of our own personal cabaret shows. And it was just a really great experience, but it's very intense. It's very, very intense.
Okay. And where were the cruise ships traveling to?
So lucky enough for my wife joined me on these cruises. For us, there wasn't a lot of home ports. They just kind of kept looping around the world, which was kind of nice. So one summer, yes, we did just the Baltic and the Med. One summer we started in Vancouver, went over to Quebec, and finished all the way down in Sydney, Australia. So that was pretty amazing. A lot of transatlantic stuff. So I got to see, like I said, a lot of the world. I've only missed Southern Africa and Asia, and didn't get to do that one yet.
Is this how you met Wayne?
It's how I met Wayne, my buddy Wayne. Yes, he was working as the shop manager, and I came on. I was on as a singer. One of my counterparts, who was a singer, knew that Wayne had worked with Wayne before, knew he was coming on. He said, "Hey, Andrew, I got to tell you, you're about to meet your best friend." I said, "Okay, let's see, we'll see." And then the day I met Wayne, I was like, "Oh, you sound like you're from London. This is amazing. I love your waistcoat. What a pretty waistcoat you have." And we just hit it off smashingly. So much so, he was one of my best men in my, and vice versa, in our weddings, and godfather to our children. And it's pretty cool, amazing. The thing is, the intensity of a cruise ship is amazing, but you become friends fervently quickly. So you make lifelong companionship in the matter of weeks sometimes, because you're living together and working together and conquering these struggles together. So the kinship, much like theater in general, you become very close very quick to people.
Okay. And then I was going to ask you something else about Wayne. Okay, so anyway, we'll move on a little bit and we'll come back to Wayne. Okay, so talk a little bit about your position as the director of hospitality. What do you do all day? Here's what I wanted to ask you. How do you get a job on a cruise ship? So what would you recommend for that? And then also, I'll do the next one, but I'll try to do them together. How do you get into the wine industry?
Okay, sheer will both ways. So the way I got it, sheer will. So the funniest thing about working on a cruise ship is it literally went to an audition in New York, a couple hundred people, and they chose me to go on there. And you think, okay, great, I can sing and I can dance. And then you go on a cruise ship and you're also in charge of hosting dinners and going to tea and talking with people. And the hospitality is something that they don't really prepare you for. And you either learn or you don't. And a lot of people, there's turnover or firings, or you excel and embrace the position and go for it. That's if you want to be a performer. If you want to work on a cruise ship, there's many agencies you can look and see and find. There's sommeliers, there's bartenders, there's F&B directors, food and beverage, all kinds of things you can look at. There's many agencies, hiring agencies, that are looking for people all the time. So feel free to throw yourself out there. It's awesome. How do you get into wine? That was literally just, I'm not a big, if you put it out there guy, but I should be, because most of my life has been, I think I want to do this. And somehow later on, I end up doing this. So when my wife and I stopped performing for a bit, we had finished our last cruise contract and we said, you know what, let's just take a second off. Let's not take a contract and see what happens. And we got pregnant. And they're like, well, there you go. So we decided to not keep going back onto cruise ships. And I had always worked in between gigs as, maitre d's, bartenders, bar managers, all kinds of stuff with hospitality, making people smile, right? So I thought, you know what? I wonder if someone would take a chance on me, because when I go wine tasting, I think the person is usually a little either too full of himself, too dry, makes me feel dumb if I have a bad question. And I know I can do that. I have no idea what wine is. I have no idea. I know Bud Light and Jameson. That's all I know. So how could I get at this job? And literally just started reading everything I could, watching Som TV, shout out to Som TV, reading Wine Folly, shout out to Madeline. Just there's so many resources out there. And luckily, what I had that they told me is the stuff that you can't teach, right? Confidence, like we talked about, public speaking, making people laugh in whatever situation, making people feel comfortable. So all I had to learn was the liquid, and someone took a chance on me and hired me and moved my family up to Lodi. And then within a couple months, I got the offer to come over to Sonoma. And then it just had been like, okay, you got the job. Don't let them down. Learn. And I've just kind of been on an upper trajectory. Why now I teach classes, and now I'm known as the wine guy to all my friends. It's very funny how 7 years can really change your life.
And also, you never know who you're going to meet. I've
You
had
never
so
know who
many
you're going to meet.
people. I started this broadcast, and I've had people fly from New York to come meet me. And then my friend Tara just came from Canada, and we went to the wine district together, and we had wine together. So it's really interesting to see what happens and who you're going to meet. So
Yeah.
okay, let's talk about your consulting business. So you said you've been teaching wine classes. Is that under Witty Wino Consultant?
Yeah, so it started with my last position in my last company with when COVID hit. We were talking briefly off air about COVID. COVID was a huge detriment. I'm not downplaying it, but it was also an experiment for me. And I started doing the virtual stuff, much like you, pretty instantly into the pandemic. And thankfully, because of my acting background, I was fairly decent at talking to a camera and making people still feel um, enlightened, happy to be there, type of thing. Because so many of those first COVID virtual presentations were dry, and it really turned people off. So that shot me into doing the virtual, the classes, the in-person classes, all that stuff. When I left that company and before I took this job, I had a couple months, and I thought, you know what? I think I might just consult. It's a hard gig because you never know where your next paycheck's coming, but there are so many hundreds of brands who can't afford a director of hospitality, a hospitality sales manager, a wine club manager, and they all need help doing things like this or virtual tastings or coming in and hosting a class when the owner can't be there. So I thought, you know what, that might be my niche. Then I talked to this family and I said, you know what, I kind of want to come in here. So I put that on the back burner, but it is something I still do. I have some friends who come up here, or now they become friends, but they'll hire an Airbnb and say, hey, we want you to come to us, and I'll go in and teach classes in their Airbnb to 20 people or so. And it's been really fun. The coolest thing is how I got the name the Witty Wino was because of my daughter. She was 5 years old at the time. And oftentimes in these positions, you'll go to a hotel lobby and pour some wine and meet people and get them to come back to you or buy some wine or join the club or something. And oftentimes that'll coincide with school pickup. So I would grab my daughter and bring her with me, and she'd sit and watch dad do what he does. And I think it's very important for her to see daddy doing service stuff, because service is a very near and dear thing to my heart. I think it's a great kind of career and industry is service. So one day someone looked over to my then 5-year-old daughter and said, hey, honey, what does your daddy do? And she said, oh, my dad? That's easy. He's a wine clown. And I said, what'd you say, honey? He said, well, you pour wine and you make people laugh, so you're a wine clown. So then when I was thinking, which I loved, I've been called so much worse, Jessyca, so much worse. So when I was thinking of a business, I thought, you know what? The Witty Wino can work for me. So that's how I got that name. And it's definitely on a big part of the back burner, but it's always something I'll have in my life and something that I'll probably eventually make into a full-time career later in life.
You know, the other thing when you were just talking about your daughter that I think is interesting is wine. It's an alcoholic beverage, but there's so much more to it. There's so many people that study it. There's so much history to it. I've taken wine classes and had to spit everything because I was driving from Portland to Eugene. And I think there's also another look at wine, that it's not just people sitting around drinking, that this actually an art. It's a very artistic sort of job, I believe, also. Which probably was why it fits in with your art background.
Yeah, of course. I think it in many ways it's kind of the glue of civilization, right? Like it's the great coming together of people. I might have a group here of 18 bachelorette friends, people in, and if we were all at a bar somewhere drinking, we might talk a little bit, but we'd all have 18 different things in our glass. But for 90 minutes, the life becomes secondary and the libation is primary, because we're all talking about the same liquid. And then all of a sudden, 90 minutes later, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, what else is in your life? So it's really cool how life can pause for a moment while we focus on this really cool, magical liquid in there. And then we go on back to our separate lives. But it really is the bringing together.
I think so too. Yeah. And food and wine tend to do that.
Yes.
It throughout history brings us together. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, what are your favorite wines? Now that's
Favorite
always a
wines.
hard question. I never know how to answer that.
I know,
But go ahead.
it's
But if you're in one particular area in Sonoma, it might be a little bit easier.
yeah, sure. All my favorite wines, of course, are San Giacomo, Chardonnays, and Pinot. No, I'm teasing. They're very, very high up there. Very high up there. What we do. However, some of my favorite wines, as I mentioned before, the bigger, bolder stuff. I just came back from a summer spent in a couple weeks in Italy, and had a hard time finding a single wine I didn't like. I really do love Italian wines. Um, Whenever I'm going home from work here, I don't stop at a local tasting room all the time to get a wine for dinner. I usually stop at the international wine market just to grab something that's not a California palate because we're spoiled out here. We have a plethora of beautiful California options. Um, but in this valley alone, I love some of the mountaintop Cabernet in Sonoma. There's some wonderful companies up in Kenwood. I love what they're doing with their bigger, bolder Zins, even a Sangiovese, which is kind of crazy up in Kenwood at Muscardini. Shout out to those guys. Um, I'm a real sucker for GSMs, and probably you could never, ever, ever upset me with champagne. I just love bubbles.
Okay, explain what GSM is to the
Sure,
audience.
sure, of
Okay.
course. A GSM is typically a Rhone blend. And when you say GSM, typically it'd be Grenache leading. So Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, and then you can have any kind of components of those three. And typically you could have a little touch of Viognier or something to soften it, but a GSM would be a nice, pretty Rhone blend. And they're obviously from the Rhone area in France, but many, many, many places around the country, even down into Texas, are doing some really great blends.
Okay, here's Wayne with a question.
I feel like I'm getting interviewed by Wayne today. This is really nice. What's
Yes,
Andrew's
Wayne's
favorite?
it's
Yeah,
pretty good.
my favorite wine tasting experience outside of San Giacomo. Well, I've been blessed. I've been so blessed. There's some fantastic ones. I've spent some time up at Maya Kama's estate. They did a beautiful job. Be Wise over here in Sonoma did a fantastic cave tasting that I've been a part of. One of my absolute favorites. And since Wayne asked it, I'm going to put him on the spot here. But I took him to Opus One when he came to visit me years ago, and we were having the best time ever. If you don't know Opus One, look it up. It's one of the top wineries I think in the world, but they do fantastic Bordeaux blends, and they are uh, extremely fair priced, but a very high end winery. So I take wine. We're doing this beautiful tour. Take Wayne. We're doing this beautiful tour. We're sipping some gorgeous wine that is literally like $100 a glass, and we're getting towards the end of the tour, and we're in their little proper tasting room, which is all white marble, just beautiful. And I'm loving life. And Wayne is loving life even more than me. And he goes, Andrew, this is just the best day. And he hit a glass of wine so hard, he shattered it, red wine over everything of white marble, all over the server who was helping us. And I'll never forget, the guy goes like this. If he didn't like it, he could have just told me. And I was dying. I was dying that Wayne just smashed $100 glass of wine onto our server's face in the most prestigious place he'd ever stepped foot into that point.
Do you see Wayne very often?
No, he lives in England now. We just, when we were in Italy, we saw each other. But it's been years since then, and we hopefully have some plans to get back out there in another year or two over to Scotland and Ireland, where we'll meet up again.
Okay, yeah. It's fun to meet over there as opposed to meeting over here, isn't it?
Yeah,
I like I like being in Europe a lot. Okay, so the next thing, let's just chat about real quickly. Things to see and do in Sonoma.
Oh gosh, there's so much. I mean, people think it's just wine, and it's a lot of wine, trust me. But there's amazing hiking. There are fantastic Michelin star restaurants. There's a beautiful town square, which is actually the first place, or we call it the plaza, the first place the California flag was ever raised in the Bear Flag Rebellion against Mexico. There's a wonderful tiny little, actually it's not that tiny, but a theme park and a little amusement park called Train Town that my kids absolutely love. It's 1/8 the size of Disneyland, and it's 1/8 size regular trains that go around this small little town, and there's roller coasters and stuff. So I was walking down the street with my wife a couple months ago, and I said I kind of have to pinch myself, like what don't we have here? It's safe. The climate's here. There's mineral pools to go swimming in. There's rivers to go rafting down. There's great hiking, dog friendly everywhere, and then world class wineries, of course, which is one of my favorite pastimes to do when I have some time off.
So, what about some tips for entrepreneurs? You're
Tips for
entrepreneurial.
entrepreneurs.
I'm entrepreneurial, and
Yeah.
we just went through COVID. And
Mhm.
so what would you tell entrepreneurs?
It's going to sound so cliche, but you just got to keep going forward. And now, what's not cliche is the way I think of forward. So I tell young people all the time if I'm mentoring them or if I hire people and they're just saying, I'm the perfect example. I'm sitting here running a winery, and if you would have told me even 10 years ago or 8 years ago, I'd be like, that's insane. So my biggest thing with entrepreneurship, life in general, is you got to embrace the curves, right? Life is not a straight line. Entrepreneurship is not a straight line. If you fight those curves that happen in life, you're going to not have the best time. But if you embrace those curves and go with it and treat it like a dance, then when you get to the end of it, you're going to go, oh my gosh, that was not as hard as I thought it was. And I really did enjoy the ride.
You know, I have a journal, a gratitude journal, and I write 3 to 5 things a day I'm grateful for. And it sure does help when the perception is things aren't going well. And sometimes your perception of things that aren't going well with you might not be someone else's perception. And I was listening to Think and Grow Rich, which came out, I believe, in the like maybe 1928, was Napoleon Hill. And one of the things he said is if you're working on something, a company or anything that you're doing, the first thing they offered was don't give up. So many people will give up short of actually getting to where they're going. So just because at the moment, and also failure, they kind of discuss failure is quite often people that are very successful, they fail a lot, particularly entrepreneurs are failing at what they're doing until they hit it. But people don't see the failures, they see when you finally got it.
Of
And
course.
then, yeah, so I thought that was really interesting too. Well, do you want to tell people how to find you? And what do you think is coming up for you in the next few years?
Oh, wow. Put on the
Well,
spot
I
there. Let's
know
come up with
that's
let's
always
go
kind of
here, girl.
hard, especially when things are
Yeah,
uncertain. Well, today I'm actually doing this and I don't know,
I
but
know exactly. I've really enjoyed my time here at San Giacomo, and I think this is a great place to be for quite a while. I with a company as old as this is, but yet as young as the hospitality program is, there's so much room for what's next, and I've really enjoyed watching the journey. I don't think I'd leave Sonoma. I really enjoy it here. But I mean, I again embrace those curves. I would embrace anything that happens in the next couple of years. One of the most fun part has been watching my daughters, who are now 7 and 4, become young little ladies and become a bigger part of their life. I'm lucky enough with my schedule here to make sure I can pick them up most days and or drop them off, with my trading with my wife and go to some events and sports stuff with them. So uh, I'm just going to really embrace the next couple years of being being a dad and being a part of a really cool community here. And it's working with this family alone is in the last 2 years, I've quadrupled how many people I know in town. So it's kind of hard to walk anywhere in town and not know someone. And I kind of like that feeling. I've lived in big cities and all over the world most of my life, and now in this little tiny alcove in this hamlet of Sonoma, it's pretty special. So I think I'm just going to enjoy the ride for a couple of years and welcome any opportunities that come towards me and really embrace where I am if none come.
I think that sounds great. And how do people find you if they're
Yeah.
looking
So
for you on social media?
okay, or if I'm right here, if you're by the road, you can see me. I'm waving at you. Um, if you want to
If
try
you
to
come to
find
your
me, yeah,
winery.
yeah, come to San Giacomo Family Wines anytime. We're open 7 days a week. I'm here most of them. But yeah, you can find me at Witty Wino on Instagram. Catch me if you can, Drew, on Instagram, and I think Facebook somewhere. I dabble with social media. I'm not as affluent as I should be on there, but you can always shoot me an email at wittywino@gmail.com, and it's witty wine and then oh@gmail.com. I'd love to talk to you guys and reconnect, and stay tuned because I'm going to get that thing rolling again as well.
Another thing I wanted to mention, this is a live broadcast. It has been recorded, so you'll be able to comment or ask any questions after the broadcast ends, and we will be happy to answer anything. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, Andrew. It was so nice to talk to you today live from the vineyard. And
Yeah.
I'll wave to you bye, and we'll just do our little close here. And thank you so much, everybody. Feel free to subscribe, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.